Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. It's your season review. I'm your host, Richard. Joining me, as always, co-host Jack. How we doing, my man?
Happy Memorial Day, sir. Doing well. Looking forward to looking back on a very successful and exciting season, and lots to look forward to in the Bundesliga next year.
Yeah. A very exciting season. Lots of awards to give out tonight. Look at some team news. Very little has happened so far, but definitely look at the team news. I see Joseph and Eric in the house. Glück auf to both you gentlemen. Anyone else who's in the chat or jumps on, just let us know and then shout out where you're at. We got all this season to talk about for us, but there's a little bit of thing we had to get taken care of before we talk about next year or this year, and is how is next year going to look for the Bundesliga and the Zweite Liga? It came down to two teams. It came down to Wolfsburg, came to Paderborn. The game one leg that happened last Thursday ended in 0-0, not very entertaining. But this game today, very much so entertaining. Paderborn, they get promoted. They win 2-1 against Wolfsburg. It was certainly an interesting game, I think. We're not going to get too much into this game, but Wolfsburg scored 2 minutes into the game, got a 1-0 lead. They look like they're ready to have some fun. And then like a 12th minute, Joachim Mela makes a stupid foul. It was like him and another player. I think him and Kurda or somebody else went head to head. They got in each other's faces. They each got yellow cards. Pretty standard stuff, really. And then 2 minutes later, Joachim Mela again makes a reckless foul, gets a second yellow and then a red, and he's out of the game. And the game flips completely where the game started out where Wolfsburg looked like they were maybe on the road, able to control this thing, and all of a sudden they get a red card, and the board flips completely. It was all Paderborn. I think at one point shots were like 34-2 or something crazy like that. They get a goal from Milbia, of course, who also going to score just before halftime, and then the game went into overtime. It went to extra time, and in that time, a backdoor goal by Kurda. We've seen that goal many times throughout the season. He scores, gets the game-winning goal. I think Paderborn had like 3 or 4 posts in this game. They win, a deserved win, I think. Thoughts on the relegation playoffs and the divisions now set in the first and second division?
Yeah, I mean, that Kurda goal that you mentioned was literally the opener against us.
Yeah.
In that 3-2 come from behind win. That's how they started the game, was a cross-field kind of back post, they hits first time. So we know that he has that in his locker for sure. The only bad news for us is that with Paderborn getting promoted, Bilby is probably not available for us to pick up and take with us to the Bundesliga. Obviously, he'll be staying put with his current club. One less possible recruit. We can get into that later. But outside of that, happy for Paderborn. As I kind of mentioned a couple pods ago, I felt bad for their fan base in terms of kind of the way their season kind of crumbled at the end. Like they were very much in contention for the title, and then we had that come from behind win against them, and then suddenly they're all the way down playing in the promotion spot as opposed to automatic or whatever. So glad that they got it over the line. Don't really have any particularly strong positive feelings for Wolfsburg. So it is what it is. That's the way it goes sometimes. But yeah, the rare second division team advancing. What's the only other one that did that? Was it Union Berlin? Yeah, basically the last 15 years or so, it's always been the top flight team that ends up pertaining in those situations. So good on Paderborn.
Yeah, that was in 2019. Union Berlin got past Stuttgart in aggregate because they had away goals counted at that time, but they wiped it away since then. So yeah, it was a big win. And it's funny because there's two comments on this game. One, I thought, and I said this, I don't know, a month ago or maybe so ago, we talked about this, how of any team you'd want to be in the relegation playoff against a Bundesliga team, Paderborn seemed the team that was the most complete and capable of doing it. We didn't want to be in that position because you just never know how it's going to be against Wolfsburg or Bremen or whoever you're going to play against. And Paderborn are the most complete team, I think, in the league, despite how they played against the top teams. That's the first comment. And then the second comment is, it's so crazy to me how, and we talked about this too, is like Paderborn didn't have a single victory against the top 5 opponent this year. Not a single victory. We said, you're not going to get promoted doing that way. Well, one way you can get promoted is you beat a Bundesliga team. And that's what they did. So, when it got tough, Paderborn grinded it out.
That's the way it works out sometimes, though, right? It's like the logic would not suggest that, this is going to be the challenge that they overcome given their record against, the tougher opposition. And then, of course, they get it done. Obviously red card plays a factor in that. But, crazy stuff today.
So the season is complete. We three teams get promoted from the second division. Obviously, us, Elfersberg, and now Paderborn. So there's at least two teams, we can feel comfortable with in the in the first division, I should say. Got to get used to saying first division again, right? We'll welcome back a bunch of old friends, I guess you want to call it, but happy to have the Bundesliga back. And then the second division, they're gonna have Wolfsburg in there, as well as Heidenheim and who was the third team? I don't remember the third team who got relegated now, but the team that got promoted from the third division, who was that? Cottbus, and someone else, I think. Anyway, it's gonna be fun next year. I don't know what to expect. We talked about this before the podcast. We don't know what to expect for this season ahead, but we got a lot to talk about from this past season, Jack. Med Hunter's in the house too, and Sanjar. I see both you guys there. Gluk auf. What a crazy season it was, Jack. Obviously, we won the league. Kind of coasted there at the end, and by coasting I mean just the Nuremberg game. Really, other than that, we had no losses for a couple months there, but we win the league by 8 points. It could have been. It was 1-2 points for majority of the season, and then at the very end we caught fire and kind of started blowing teams away while everyone was eating themselves. We just continued to win against the top teams, and that kind of really was the mantra of the season, where against the top five we were undefeated. We beat Elfersberg 1-0 in the Hinrunde, and then 2-1 in the Rückrunde. Paderborn we won 2-1 in the Hinrunde, and then 3-2 in the epic comeback in the Rückrunde. Hanover draw in the first encounter, and then won 3-0 in the second. And then Darmstadt won the first one 1-0 and drew 1-1. This screenshot's a big reason why we got promoted. It's often when it comes down to titles and winning a league, it's how do you do against the rivals in your league, and the proof is in the pudding. We were unreal. No matter even the slow start, we were still unreal against these teams, and that ended up being one of the major reasons, Jack.
Yeah, those championship 6-pointers, if you will, as they sometimes refer to them. But yeah, I mean, when the lights were shining brightest, we tended to show up this season. I think that Paderborn game at the end of the year, maybe the best example of that, going down 2-0 on the road and finding a way to pull that one back to kind of flip the script and kind of put us back in the driver's seat for the title. Pretty incredible stuff. And I think like the team this year, you look at the goal scoring and everything, like mid-table team offensively in terms of the goal tally, but far and away the best defensive team in terms of like expected goals allowed, and obviously what the actual record was. Kind of underperformed on offense a little bit, but absolutely absurd form in front of goal, and obviously Carey is a big part of that. But the new regime that took over, taking us from 60 something goals conceded to less than a goal per game is pretty crazy. So wild ride.
That's one of the big talking points for the season, is just look at where we were this time last year, where we barely survived relegation to the third division. And it really wasn't because we earned it. It's because we kind of slipped, and the teams below us slipped even worse. And so it's just a stark contrast to where we are now. Really unreal year ride. We haven't had this kind of experience in a long time, it feels like. But it kind of got things off in the beginning, really. You look at how the season started, really, with, winning at Hertha Berlin. That was huge victories for us. Rembrandt came out. We thought this was his coming out party, and then he gets injured shortly thereafter, but he had a great performance this one. I think a goal and assist in this one. He got the assist to Sylla, and then, obviously losing the Kaiserslautern, had some ups and downs, I think, to start the season. But mostly, obviously trended up, and we ended up the first half of the season in first place. Out of the games in the first half, anything stuck out to you? I'll tell you mine real quick, because we were up and down. We did finish the first place at the end of the first half of the season, but I was still unsure of what this team was at that point. We knew we were good defensively, right? But we also knew this kind of offense doesn't stick. We've seen this before with Tedesco, where the defense is great and it lasts for so long, but when teams figure you out, you don't know how to score goals, and things make it more difficult. And I think the two fixtures that really cemented my anxiety, even though we were in first place, was this Darmstadt back-to-back, where we win the first game 1-0. It's great, whatever. And we played Darmstadt again. They had just seen us a couple days before that, and they killed us 4-0. I'm like, shit. Is this what the second half of the season is going to be in store for us? When we play all these teams, they're going to just want to destroy us.
That's and then losing to Karlsruhe on the back of that, and not looking particularly good in that game, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And so that was kind of where it was like, all right, like are the wheels finally falling off, kind of a thing. So I would agree with you definitely. Like that was probably the main, the first kind of slap back to reality in the first half of the season.
Yeah. What games stood out for you in terms of the first half of, I guess, how we performed? And
outside of that one, I think the draw against Preußen Munster was another one where it was like, this is a bad team and we can't score against them, and like what.
And they had a red card, right?
I forget. I don't know. Maybe if they were down a man, that's even worse. There you go.
We got a red card in the 54th minute. There you go.
And we couldn't score against them with a man advantage. I think that was another one where I was like, what's going on here, kind of a thing. But
it was certainly ridiculous. And then I think the way the second half of the season started, obviously we were in first place. Coming out, we obviously had some moves that were going to happen, and I think the moves were in the process of happening. Not all of them happened at once. But we come out the gates, and it wasn't the greatest start to the second half of the season. Bunch of draws. I think we had 3 draws and a loss to start the season, or second half of the season. And it's like, shoot, we brought in all these pieces to shore up our offense, thinking our defense would just still be good. And here we are leaking goals left and right. And it's like, shoot, do we overcome things? And we talked about how, like, sometimes when you add pieces to a team that's actually performing very well, it can throw things off sometimes. And that it seemed, at least to start the season, the first month or whatever, that, geez Louise, we forgot how to play defense all of a sudden, and teams are figuring us out when we're getting draws when we should be winning.
Yeah, that was, kind of an anxiety-filled part of the season. I think we kind of felt like we were losing steam towards the end of the first half. We were kind of getting away with it, and we didn't really lose until that Braunschweig game, like right before we went into the break. And then, really had very little going for us, despite some of the acquisitions in the initial games in January, February. And I think we'll talk about some of those later, maybe. But, I think it was probably like the Magdeburg game that really kind of got the mojo back, maybe. But, it took a while for some of those pieces to really start clicking into form.
Yeah, I think it was that January winter, obviously they start the Rückrunde off with the draw 0-0 against Hertha, then drew Kaiserslautern 2-2, and I think we were winning in that game, and then lose to Bochum 2-0. Drew Dresden, who were bottom of the table. It wasn't until we won that game against Holstein Kiel, but then I think you're right, the Magdeburg game really what kicked things off for us.
Was Karius hurt during that period as well? Or am I making that up?
He was hurt during the Magdeburg for sure. I think he was hurt during the Holstein Kiel. There's 3 games. It was Magdeburg, Kiel, and
I'd have to go back and look at some of the goals we can see. I was trying to remember, like, if Karius happened to be out during that period of time, like in those, or if it was just like they were playing direct and beating us, and we weren't, we're playing like a kind of too high of a block, whatever. But it was crazy to see the defense, which had been kind of the cornerstone of what we were doing in the first half of the season, suddenly abandon us. And that was pretty scary, because even with the improvements, we weren't sure if the defense just fell off a cliff, if that was going to be enough to see us through.
Yeah, but eventually, new pieces came in, started doing the job, and we went on a run at the end of the season. And we had lost first place for like the first month or two, and then we finally got it back, and we kind of didn't hold back after that. And it was just constantly, every week was just 1 or 2 points, and then finally at the end we started pulling away from teams. When the gauntlet happened, all the top teams started playing each other, and we kind of separated ourselves then. But it was nice to win the league, get promoted with 2 games to spare, and there's lots of memories from the season. I'm ready to get into some awards if you are, to kind of talk about some of these games. A lot of these games are going to be discussed with some of these awards here, and I'm ready if you are.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so let's start off with I'm trying to see what order I want to do this. Let's just go the banger from the beginning. Goal of the year. What was your goal of the year?
If you'll allow, okay, I'll do mine. You do yours. I'd like to have a couple honorable mentions as well, because this is always a tough one. And with the caveat that I don't even know if it's possible to see all of the goal highlights on YouTube at this point. So I'm probably missing and forgetting some that.
Well, I'll say this: little plug for SchalkeMerica. If you go to our YouTube page and watch the season highlights, you'll probably see majority of the goals of the season. We've already got thousands and thousands of views already. So go check it out. You'll see majority of the goals there, but you're obviously doing a podcast right now, so it's a little bit harder for you.
So my logic on this probably changes every year. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's the most beautiful team goal or whatever. Fundamentally, it's kind of what's the craziest goal, like what's the most ridiculous goal. I mean, so this year I'm going with Finn Porat's like tough angle volley against Greater Firth match day 7. I think it was a shot across goal that was deflected very wide, and he was like on the edge of the goalkeeper box, and somehow got that in with a tough angle. So I'm going to go with Porat's.
That's a good goal. I remember that was a really great goal. We thought at that point maybe we found a right back and he was going to be the end-all be-all right back. It didn't really work out that way, but that was a wonderful goal. He was a good piece for us. But yeah, that was a really great goal. My goal, I'm going to go. Look, I love team goals. I really do love team goals, but I also love individual brilliance. And there's a lot of this season, but one guy in particular for me, he does things that he shouldn't be doing. At least we don't expect it. That's Karaman. He turns into Leo Messi every now and then, and you're like, what the hell did I just see there? And in particular for me, the cake for me was in an important game in the Rook Runda. It was against Elfersberg, where he goes through like 3-4 players after receiving a pass and scores a ridiculous goal. And that kind of like that kicked things off really for me. Feeling losing anxiety because I felt comfortable at that point. But that goal was unreal. No matter what angle you looked at it, it was just a beautiful footwork. As I don't know where he gets this from, but he goes through 2 or 3 guys and scores that brilliant goal. That was my goal this season there. And before that, there's some other ones too, but that was my favorite.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, he always seems to come up with a couple of those this season somehow, where he's like in a telephone booth and gets out of it.
He probably has easily top 5 by himself.
Some other honorable mentions. Brian Lasma had a winner against Bochum, match day 3. Where there's a ball that was dumped in on him. He kind of ran in front of everybody, beats the defender, and then like laser near post finish to kind of beat the keeper. That was a really nice one. I think Džeko's first goal comes in off the bench in his first appearance, bodies a defender, plays it off his chest. Half volley into the corner was another one, and then last, just because it's just aesthetically it's so pleasing to me. Match day 6 against Magdeburg, Sylla plays a ball across the top to El Fauzi, who just sort of immediately lays it off to Karaman. And he has this sort of like slow curling, like right on the grass, like shot that he just passes into the far corner, like perfectly placed. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a goal that I just love for whatever reason. So I wanted to shout out those ones as well.
There was a goal, you talk about last month, there was a goal he scored towards the end of the season where he got fed by Sylla or somebody, and his one-on-one with the goalkeeper does a nice little chip over the keeper, like came out of nowhere. Like, where did this come from? And Eric had mentioned this in the Discord. At the end of the season, towards the end of the season, when Dzeko, held the ball up, tries to take it off, gets blocked, goes out top of the box, and Ljubicic with a rocket of a shot from the top of the box. That was wonderful, as well as El Fauzi had this overhead kick sometime in the second half of the season. I don't remember. It was one of the big games down the stretch. Might have been Elfersberg, honestly, but he scored an overhead kick, a beautiful goal there. So there's a bunch of goals this year to pick from. So good times from this season for sure. Kind of segues into our next segment, which is best signing. And you can do this from the summer, you can do it from the January window. Typically, we do this in the summer because there's not much going on in January. We had a lot of moves in January. So thoughts on best signing? I think it's obvious, but maybe it's not. Everyone
I don't know if it'll be obvious or not. For me, the best signing is El Fauzi, and it's not particularly close. That's just me, though. I think going and getting a relatively young player from the 3rd division and having him be number 1 on your team in appearances, and not just being a body though, but like consistently impacting the match in a way where he's making teams of the week like on a pretty consistent basis and being a huge contributor. And then, helping us win this title. And now as we're moving into the Bundesliga, suddenly being arguably our most high-value player in terms of, like, transfer market potential, being in the 3rd division last year is remarkable to me. I think that's, like, goes to show, hopefully, a positive change in Schalke's scouting, capabilities and whatnot. Absolute gem and fantastic year from him.
And that's one of the times that showed the transition from Ben Manga to Frank Baumann. And in this particular situation, Baumann had said, look at this El Fauzi guy, and Manga reportedly said, oh, he's not that good. Don't even waste your time with this. The analytics say, and Bauman's like, no, I'm taking this guy, and he turned out to be a freaking gem. And so you see a little bit of that scouting from Frank Bauman. So I love that shout there. For me, I'm going to go Edin Džeko, and I say this because obviously because he's Edin Džeko, but I think at a time where we weren't sure what this team was going to be, we know defensively we're good, but couldn't do anything offensively other than Karaman. And Edin Džeko really comes in, and it's not just his play, but he got everyone else to elevate their play. And all of a sudden, all the new players started playing really well. All of a sudden, all the old players playing well. Karaman's still doing his thing, and so it was like he kind of lifted the team with just being there. And he didn't even start all the games. He missed like the last 5 games, but he was on the bench for a bunch of them. But his presence alone seemed to lift everyone up. And I'm granting, the coaching staff had a lot to do with that and the players, but it felt like the team just got immensely better with the arrival of Edin Džeko. And obviously there's several other pieces that came along with that. But that was for me. But I love that shout out of Fauzi, and there were several others you could name, left, right, and center for sure.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm only going off Fauzi just because of his contributions over the course of the entire year. But Dzeko is undoubtedly the highest profile signing we've had in years. And I mean, in the games that he like 1.35 goals plus assists per 90. I mean, like, come on, and he had 9 goal involvements in 11 games, or just so it's like less than it's something like in 11 games that he got into at some point, just absolutely crazy statistics. It was as advertised, if not better than we probably hoped for when he came in. I just shouted out, one of his goals, immediate impact on his debut, 3 days after getting signed. Had another brace shortly thereafter where he scored a goal from outside the box. 40 years old, just absolutely bodying people. So I mean, I cannot argue with that shout out either.
Yeah, and look, we got to say this. It goes without saying, but sometimes you have to reiterate it. Just because we think someone's the best signing or maybe the worst doesn't mean it's not about the player in particular. Just how we feel on particular signing, which kind of goes into our worst signing. And by no means do we think this person or whoever we select is a bad person or bad player at all. It just didn't work out for us. Didn't work out for them. So worst signing. We may be in agreement, but maybe not. We're all surprised that sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. Worst signing of the season.
Yeah, there's always some different ways you can go about this. I think we disagreed on ours last year, maybe with Sanchez and somebody else potentially. But
getting by, I think we said, how did that work out?
So I'm going to go with Gomez on this one. I just feel like going into this season, we needed some help offensively. Obviously, we needed, based on the record last year, we needed help defensively as well. But we're looking around, kind of slim pickings on offense. Gomez gets signed, and we're hoping that he can add a spark. I think he ended up getting close to 20 appearances and had like 1 goal maybe, and I'm pretty sure it was like a headed redirect tapping on the goal. You know what I mean? So it was he was kind of like a poached goal from somebody else. He just very rarely had an impact. I think Brian Lasma had more big impactful match moments off the bench in far fewer appearances than Gomez did off the time starting matches. I don't want to pile on too much. I just feel like that one unfortunately never really got going for whatever reason.
Yeah, this is our first agreement. I too believe it's Christian Gomez because I think, and I don't know who brought him in, if it was Bauman or Manga or whoever, but the thought was he would come in and help us in the goal scoring department. And he looked like this player who could help us out on the wings and really help feed the ball to Keenan Karaman. You mentioned all the minutes that he played, and he only had 1 goal and 1 assist during the season. Really didn't contribute. I had a lot of hopes for him. The coaching staff still had faith in him where they kept putting him in there. But yeah, in terms of the output, and this year was a tremendous upside in terms of the signings Bauman made. Mostly everyone knocked out of the park, minus this one, I think. And you can't fault Bauman for that. You're not going to get everyone right. And we thought Gomez would do well for us, but unfortunately it just didn't work out for whatever reason. And so unfortunately, we're signing.
And even though we both just agreed on this, the one other thing I'll say in his defense potentially is I wonder how much less attention would have been on him, particularly in the first half of the season, if Sylla wasn't also struggling, if Sylla had been scoring a bit more consistently, if that would have just kind of papered over a lot of the anxieties about goal contributions from Gomes necessarily. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great show. That's a great show. All right, rookie of the year. And when we say rookie of the year, we really talk about the Knappen products and guys who come up through the academy. Because you can go several different ways. We had several players this year, which Miron Muslić started the season with a bunch of them, and then throughout the season sprinkled some more in here and there. So, yeah, thoughts on rookie of the year?
I struggled with this one, but I think I'm ultimately going to go with Merchant Iron as kind of the number one. I think probably close to 30 appearances or so by the end of it. Not all those starts or whatever, but had a pretty strong lock on a starting position through various points of the year. This kid was less than 20 years old, and particularly with some injuries and also sometimes playing three at the back, whatever, needing like some additional coverage. He certainly got called on a lot this year and stepped up in a big way as a teenager. So I think he's pretty well-rounded, reads the game well, decent passer, and also can cover some ground and do some makeup and that kind of whatnot. So yeah, strong stuff from him.
Yeah, I love me some Ihan. I thought he had a marvelous season, and hopefully we can hold on to him and see him through his development, because I think potential is certainly there. He can do it on both ends of the pitch. Like you said, there's several ways you can go with this one because there's so many players we saw and they had little glimpses here and there. For me, I'm trying to use memory to the best of my ability, but I'm pretty sure he gets his first start under Miron Muslić, and that is Vitaly Becker. I thought he became our lockdown left back from the start. While he only had a couple goals, were really fantastic. Talk about goals of the year. He had one of the goals of the year this year. He had a banger with his left foot. When he was in there, he was undoubtedly our left back. Obviously, he gets injured, and we had to make some moves. And then Daye comes in, and he does marvelous too. Curious, who would win that battle if they both are healthy. But Vitaly Becker, when he was in, he not only did really well defensively and offensively, he kind of reignited the minor mentality that the fans had been looking for in our team, and he was really the leader of that, because he was diving tackles and making plays, and the fans loved that effort that he had. And so I thought his at least first half season performance was unreal, and so I love seeing that. And there's a few other ones you can probably do honorable mention too, right? Valentevitz had a really good season. Bremer came out with a bang. A few other ones. Poparel didn't really kind of live up to the hype as we had hoped. But there's some other ones out there that that had decent campaigns. Dylan Leonard, right, another one. So, but yeah, I like your shout for sure. Ihan is hopefully one we have for a long time. Hopefully.
Yeah, Becker would have been the other guy I picked if not for Ryan. So totally agree there. He was fantastic, particularly earlier in the year. Before he kind of lost his role there too. Njai, mostly through injury, like you said, affecting things on both ends of the pitch. And Schalke fans love a hard diving left back like Sayo and people like that. So certainly part of a long-standing tradition there. And yeah, I totally agree. Those were some emotional leadership that you sometimes need in these kind of fights.
All right, this one I think we can go many different ways in this one, honestly. But MVP, who's your MVP this season?
It's got to be Keenan Karaman for me.
Okay.
Most goal involvements overall, captain again, kind of like the leader, through so much, locker room speeches, coming up with huge moments on the pitch, and just ultimately, like the record he has now in the Bundesliga 2 division, I think is kind of overall making him deserving of that.
Yeah, I thought Keenan Karaman was the easy choice, and so I didn't want to do that because I figured you maybe do that. So I was like, well, who else do I think had a really great year? You mentioned him earlier, actually. Soufiane El Fawzi. I think nothing to take away from Karaman, because I think Karaman undoubtedly MVP, but I think Soufiane El Fawzi's performances helped that as well, helped the team, because he was that engine room guy that we didn't have. Really, like you said, came out of nowhere. Not only was hustling, had most miles or kilometers in the Bundesliga, in the Zweite Liga, but contributed offensively, both goals and defense. He formed a rock hard partnership with Schallenberg in that double pivot role, and he was all over the pitch. He was everywhere, and I think not having something like that, the season could have gone awry in the first half of the season. He really kind of helped along with Karaman to keep that glue together until reinforcements came in January, and then everybody just really kicked off after that. But I thought the way what El Fauzi brought to us, it just again another element that brought back some of that fighting spirit that we dearly missed for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years. And so it's nice to have someone that came in, another guy that came in and really was the glue, the glue that held us together. And so I love the work that he did, honestly. So, but I mean, Keenan Karaman is the choice. I mean, really, he's our captain. He leads by example. Um, yeah, another great year. Was a third year in a row he had 13 goals or more. Unreal, unreal.
Yeah. At L5Z, there were 34 90-minute periods, obviously, in the season. He had 33.4 90s.
That's unreal. Iron Man. Should have been Iron Man award right there.
So almost the entire season, basically, like did not come off the pitch, like just ridiculous. So yeah, and the best ability a lot of people say is availability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so to have him, with that kind of work rate and stay available and the durability he was showing was pretty impressive outside of just his general play. So yeah, shout out to him.
Now, kind of funny how this segues into this next category, because we just talked about a guy who's more like an Iron Man and always there and always available. Let's talk about tragic figure of the year. Someone who maybe had something unfortunate happen to him that he didn't get to have the season that El Fauzi or Karaman may have had. You can do it any way you want, honestly. So
yeah, so I don't know which way you're going to go with this, but so for me, I'm going to say Remmert. This was a tough one for me, just because started off the season, first couple appearances, and we're like, wow, like this looks like it could be something. Don't know how good, but could be something. And then gets injured, and basically like that's all she wrote, like for basically the entire campaign. So that to me is disappointing. It looks like he maybe had a role to play this year, and lucky for us, ultimately found a way through. Obviously, without really needing his services, but disappointing that he couldn't have played a larger role in this campaign.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking Peter Remmert. When we go into the season, we talked about who are the choices we think are going to lead the line. We mentioned Hoyland or Lasmer, a couple of names. Obviously Sylla if he stayed, and Remmert won the job because of he earned the job from his preseason play, and so we had a lot of hopes for him. And he said he got injured and kind of disappeared after that, and so. Totally there with you for that. I'll give an honorable mention. I'll give Brian Lastman one too, because again, he started out the season well too. He had a good preseason, scored a bunch of goals in preseason, and then scored a goal early on in the season. Then gets injured, and he goes, right when he was starting to kick off, he gets injured and he's out, and then he finally comes back and scores a goal at the end. But again, he just had bad luck. I think last year he had a little bit of bad luck as well, and so. We weren't sure, with his bad luck last year, whether we're going to keep him. We ended up keeping him, and I thought he looked good in preseason. Looked like he was ready to take the next step, but it just got bad luck again. So it happens. Let's see. Well, let's stick on this because I went a different way. Bad luck of the year. I guess it could be another tragic figure if you want to look at it, but I'll give you a couple more names. Right. Obviously. El Fauzi and Schallenberg did their job, but I think going into the season, we all thought Max Gruger was going to be in the discussion in terms of midfielders fighting for guaranteed spots, and Gruger gets injured. I think preseason didn't even get to start the season, and eventually, luckily for El Fauzi and Schallenberg, they made those spots their own, and so Max Gruger's one who didn't really get a chance to shine this year, and then Zaida Muslić, again, a kid who scores lots of goals, a guy who hopefully be our future in terms of attack. He gets a big injury, tears the ACL. He was on a ridiculous goal pace in the Knappensschmiede, and then turns his ACL or whatever it was, and a bad gruesome injury, and he gets out just when he get called up to the top team to maybe come off the bench. And he did well in those appearances, and also he gets bad injury, and he was out until most of the season until we saw him at the very, very end. So couple other shouts in terms of bad luck, tragic figure of the year for me.
Yeah, I really like that Muslić shout. Actually, I hadn't considered that one. I forgot about that, but that's I think that's arguably probably the winner. For me, I actually just went with Timo Becker because he had just kind of completed this emotional return to the team and then gets injured and misses a significant portion of kind of like the first half of the season. Takes him a little while to kind of get back into it. Ultimately, becomes a mainstay down the stretch once again with some really nice performances. But look, I mean, he wins the title and gets Schalke promoted, so I'm sure he's feeling pretty good about things. But I wonder if that probably wasn't the campaign that he was anticipating in terms of his overall, involvement and availability and whatnot. So I'm going to go with that.
And it's funny too because we thought he was going to be our lockdown right back. He gets injured immediately. Was it the first game or something like that? And then Ihan steps up, and all of a sudden Ihan becomes the player we wanted to see, and he did extremely well. So we saw Gantenbein, Porat, a bunch of others in that position, Valentevitz, but I think Ihan really kind of developed out of necessity because of Becker going down, and so things worked out. That coaching is as well there, but yeah, I like that shot about Timo Becker. What was I going to say? Oh, okay. This next category is a difficult one. I just called it worst cost benefit ratio. So essentially, it wasn't worth the bang of the buck. You spend money on somebody thinking they're going to do well, and then they don't do well. We could have the same answer, but thoughts on this?
It's really a tough one, and I feel like anytime I try to quote somebody's like price, people in the comments are like, "That's not what the price was. You're wrong." Yeah. So I think my sources on that are usually suspect. I think I just had to go with Gomes again because I feel like the amount of money we spent on him was more. I forgot what the price was, but I feel like he was actually one of the more expensive transfers.
It was like 1.75 or 1.5 million or something crazy.
So I think it had to be him, but I don't know what you said.
No, that was mine as well. We paid all that money for 1 goal and 1 assist. And the next ones was like El Fowles, we got for like 200,000. That's obviously worth the squeeze there. And then the other one was I don't remember who the other one was. Someone like 300,000 or something like that, but it wasn't nowhere close to what it was.
Kurchai was a free, right?
Kurchai was a free, yeah. Katic was a free. And we had a lot of frees, and they all did really well. So, no, I wouldn't go based on that as well. Okay, all right. Here comes some of the nostalgia ones. Let's go a low point in the season for you.
Excuse me, 1 second. I think I'll pull this up and remember where I had this. So for me, low point of the season, I'm actually gonna do. We were talking about this game earlier. It's the 2-2 draw against Dynamo Dresden. So this is like February 7th. This is kind of the last game in that bad run of form to start the Rückrunde. We had drawn Hertha 0-0. We had drawn Kaiserslautern 2-2. We had lost 2-0 to Bochum to start the Rückrunde. And then we had a 2-0 goal at home against Dynamo Dresden, and we lost that. And saw that one slip away through our fingers. I think that was a Dzeko brace game as well that we wasted.
Yes.
Potentially. And so that to me was just like, once again, a defensive collapse. Second game in like 3 games where we conceded multiple goals, which was not happening in the first half of the season. Yeah. So that one was kind of like, I think probably the peak of our kind of like lack of faith, maybe, or kind of crisis mode. So that's my low point of the season.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there with you. It's really that stretch for me. The 3 draws and a loss, and the Rückrunde obviously ends in the draw to Dresden. It's just that whole stretch there where it's like we came out, we had these high hopes. We knew we were in first place. We had a strong defense, but then we were just giving them unlikely goals. We were giving them goals at the halves, the end of their games, and like you said, the Dresden game up 2-0 and blow that lead. Lose to Bochum, and just like it started out really bad. We're like, oh my gosh, this is when we dropped down to I think as low as 4th or 5th or something at that point. And we're like, oh no, here we go. We thought maybe worse we'd finish in 6th place, and we thought we'd be in the contention for promotion, and we'd start playing really poor. It wasn't like all losses, but it's the way we were playing these games. It wasn't the typical defense that we were become accustomed to in the first half of the season, and so. Yeah, I think we're all a little worried at that point where it's like, oh, geez, look at these plays that we're doing, and these unreal score lines not in our favor. And I'm with you 100% on that one. Let's flip it. The high point of the season. And I'm sure for all of us it's going to be at the end of the season, but I'm sure for all of us it might be different game. Something that you think.
I don't know what you're going to say. I was thinking that the Paderborn game might be a popular pick here, so I decided to be a little bit cuter than that. And I'm actually going to go with April 12th against Elversberg. So if I remember correctly, our table position was a little kind of still like a little bit sketchier at that point. And we were looking ahead to that Paderborn game on the calendar, and we knew that we had Preußen Munster right before that, which, barring something catastrophic, is a guaranteed 3 points. But we needed to get a result against Elversberg to kind of be in a position to kind of roll into that Paderborn game and have a chance to really, flip the script on them and whatnot.
Yep.
And we go on the road to Elversberg. They concede first. I mean, we concede first. Sorry, that's not problem. So we go down 1-0, and then I believe it's Njaye gets that phantom second yellow or the red card in the beginning of the second half. So now we're down a man on the road, and then like 5 minutes later, Sylla of all people scores, and it's a beautiful goal, like that long through ball, and then Ljubicic like fires it right across.
Yep.
So that one was like another kind of dramatic comeback that I felt like set us up to go into that Paderborn game a couple weeks later, like kind of firing on all cylinders.
Well, I for sure thought you were going to see the Paderborn game, so I went with the Elversberg game as well. No, and I do think because we're going into that stretch of the gauntlet, and it started off with Elversberg, who were not. I think they were second on the table at that time. We were third, I think, or fourth. We were battling. It was really the top five teams were battling within a couple points of each other, so every little result mattered, and we wanted the win, and we didn't. Going to Elversberg is never easy, and getting a win there was hard. We thought, hey, if we get a draw, it'll be good. But it seemed like all the cards are getting stacked against us with the red card and the early goal by Elversberg. Yeah, then they came back and get that win there. That's a game that Karaman got the opening goal for us in the second half, or end of the first half, where he gets that beautiful goal, and then, like I said, Sylla after the red card gets the goal. We're like, what the heck? Where did that come from? Did not expect that, because and the crazy thing too is because up to that point, every time we had gone down to 10 men, we've been conceding goals. It wasn't like we were like good defensively or we got wins. We always lost those games. And in this game, to get a win against a team and a direct rival for promotion, that was my high point of the season for sure. The Paderborn game is probably most people's, and no doubt. No, obviously we know why. It had strong emotions to the St. Pauli game, going down 2-0 and come back and went 3-2. Just the manner we did that. I think that's sealed the deal for everyone. I think once that happened, everyone was like, "We're going up, baby. We're going up." But yeah, I think till that point, the Elversberg game is like you're like, "Oh, okay." I mean, that was a huge win for us. That was a big win for us. I remember we were chatting after that game. So no.
In regards to the Paderborn game, now I feel bad that I didn't say this before, but so that game happened the day after my wedding, and shout out, my wife actually mentioned the Paderborn game in her vows at some point, and apologized for having the wedding on like the most important Schalke game of the year, and you were traveling for that and everything too, so I think we were both very hungover the next morning trying to watch that game, but good shots.
That was a good time there. All right. You can take this many different ways. Best story of the season.
I'm going to go with Curious.
Okay.
Just because, it's kind of the culmination of what we talked about last year. We signed him in the midst of a really bad campaign.
What did you say at the end of the season last year about signing him?
Yeah, I said there's a very good chance that he ends up being the signing of like the year, not for that season, but because of what he ends up doing, the following year. And to see him get through most of the season injury free, had some times where he was out, but most season injury free. League leader in clean sheets. A lot of that goes to the credit of the staff too for just the general defensive quality this season. But Kerry's absolutely a huge part of that. Huge saves all over the place, leadership and everything. And so now to see him kind of revitalize his career, stepping into the Bundesliga. Hopefully he's staying put, with us. But regardless, he has the chance to go back to the Bundesliga with a big club like Schalke, and it's just a really cool culmination for him. I always thought that the people were a little bit harsh on him. Kind of with the stuff that happened in his career, and I'm glad he's kind of had a chance to revitalize things.
Yeah, that's a great shot. I think he had a marvelous season, and with that strong defense, he didn't always have shots to face, but when the shots did come, they did come. He was awake and he was ready for those shots, and he did remarkable. He overcame a lot of those demons that he had, and I think as much as people had talked about those demons and stuff like that, they kind of overblown it on the other way, where like. I don't remember. I think maybe as soon as we got promoted, they were like, "Oh, he lost Champions League in the worst part of his career. Now he'd get promoted." It's like, okay, that's a stretch. Yeah, it's a good time. But it's like it's getting promotion. It's not like he'd won the Champions League with Schalke or something like that. Not yet. So that's
He's cool.
one. But the other thing is like, yeah, no. Hopefully he stays with them next year. I know they're trying to negotiate now. They were far apart, but they're getting closer and closer. So hopefully they do come to some kind of agreement there. But I thought he was tremendous for us in our success, and you could see nothing against Mueller. He came in and did a fine job as a backup, but you felt the difference. At least I felt. I don't know how the guys on the pitch felt, but I felt the difference when Mueller was there because there's some stages like, oh, Karius would have had that. Oh, Karius would have had that. You felt more comfortable with Karius back there. Where to start the season, we really didn't feel like that. We weren't sure, right? Last year, we weren't sure who our goalkeeper was, even when we had Karius. This year, you felt a lot more assured when he was in there. For
Let
me,
me ask you this: if
please.
I told you right now that we don't know what's going to happen with any other, personnel moves or anything else, but if I told you that we're losing Karius going into the Bundesliga next season, how much worse does that make your confidence in our ability to stay up in the way we're going to look defensively? For me, it's like kind of significant.
It is. It's significant for me unless Bauman pulls another rabbit out of his hat, which he could. But without knowing who that is, yes, I think it's a significant loss because he's comforting back there to make those saves. If you told me it's going to be Muller's going to start next season and Karius is going to be out, I'd be like, I don't know about that. I'll feel very very worried about that. So yeah, no, I think and that goes to show how good of a player he is and was this season. So I went with my decision with best story of the season. I didn't really necessarily go with a player. I always went from just what we've experienced over the last 12 months, and that was from worst to first, really, right? We nearly get relegated to third division. We didn't know where we were going as a team. We literally experienced the worst season in Schalke history. Fans are sick with what the team is doing, and finally we start making these really great decisions behind the scenes, right? We obviously hired Frank Bauman, let some people go, bringing Miron Muslić, even though at the time we weren't sure how Miron would fit in, made some moves of personnel, and we changed that defense. You mentioned earlier in the podcast, they're like, we gave it 60 something goals last year, and this year we give it what 26, 30 something like goals. A stark turnaround, and to go from where we were to get promoted back to the Bundesliga after last season. I don't think any of us thought that we were going to get promoted this year. We joked every season. I like to joke, "Oh, we're going to be in first place." I didn't do it this year. I didn't think we were going to get close. I thought I said maybe top 10 or something like that. We both said maybe top 10. We just want to see ourselves stabilize from where we were previously, and then Miron Muslić and the team, they just went above and beyond. It was unbelievable. Eric says many goalkeepers are moving in the Bundesliga next season. Yeah, yeah. Except for Neuer, I heard he's staying. So, ageless wonder, I guess. Let's see. Unsung hero of the season. I went an obscure way, but what's your thought for unsung hero this season?
Plymouth Argyle.
You would. That's cool. Yeah.
For giving us their manager and associated staff. No, that's not my real answer. And player, yeah. I'm going to go with Mr. Ron Schallenberg. Did not necessarily pop up on the goal sheets in terms of like assists or goal contributions, those sorts of things. But next to El Fauzi, who we just said had 33.490 minutes, 34. Next to Fauzi, he was the most appearances of any other Schalke player. I think he played in 33 games, I want to say. Had like 31 full 90s. Quietly just went about his role, was an absolute mainstay, set it and forget it in the middle of the field. You rarely had a lot of moments where you're looking at him in terms of making mistakes or whatever. So not the flashiest season, but I think that's the definition of unsung hero. And Schallenberg just once again absolute glue for us in the midfield and making himself available.
And he was certainly a leader. You saw in the back room, he's often quiet, but he will speak up when he has something to say. And we saw in some of those behind the scenes footage from Schalke how he did say stuff at times. He did speak up. When he got mad, he was mad. So you listened when Schallenberg spoke. So I love that shout. Eric's talking about all the goalkeepers moving next year, and so Karius isn't there. You get the Heidenheim goalkeeper possibly because they got relegated. That was the other team, Heidenheim. Forget about them. I went not Plymouth Argyle obscure, but it was kind of close. My unsung hero of the season was the fans. and it's not that the fans were never there before. It just from last year, what we experienced, kind of back, so comes off of what I just talked about, the best story, what they had to go through, being pissed off at the team, booing the team, and then this year didn't care. Showed up to their first game against Hertha Berlin and was freaking amazing. The choreo they had there. And throughout the season, constantly pushing the team. The traveling contingent, 25, 30,000 fans away. Uh, Unreal what they did. They really helped push this team over and through. And as they got louder, the team responded, and both went together. And I thought really the fans were unreal this year, and some of the best tifos we've seen in a long time from this year. And I think that's another thing too. Is like, yes, we had boycotted for a while because it was the mini protest against the police, but Schalke came out with the tifos this year, and obviously the one end of the season with the king that kind of looked like Muslic, but it wasn't. Kaiser in Riviera. That was one of the best tifos I've ever seen. In terms of the whole stadium there, they just knocked it out again, and I love how they show. Chelsea Champions League tifo versus second division Schalke with their freaking unbelievable tifo. The fans just brought it all year long, and really deserve a shout out, I think.
No, I absolutely love that. I mean, I think we've mentioned this before. There's times you're playing, EAFC or FIFA or whatever, and just see these pre-match tifos, and you're like, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, people don't really actually do that. It's a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
We actually do, because because the Schalke supporters have pulled this off repeatedly this season, and over the years before we got banned for that blue gas one with the T-shirt, years ago, or the kit.
Oh, yeah.
Super cool. But to back you up as well, our home form this season, 13 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. Only had 1 loss at home all year. Yeah, plus 15 goal difference, 2.47 points per game at home. The Veltins Arena was an absolute fortress, and almost certainly the atmosphere that's created by the Schalke faithful week in, week out is a huge part of that. And like we talked about it, especially in the Düsseldorf game, you could feel it like through the TV. How electric it was, and obviously, and that's not to say anything about our traveling support either, which is incredible too. But I'm just saying the home form was ridiculous, and I'm sure the team, the fans played a huge role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with the promotion and the championship this year, it kind of goes and begs the question. You always want to do the comparisons, right? How does this promotion and championship compare to the one we did 4 years ago with Simon Terodde? They're different animals, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the other one was a little bit more exciting.
Okay.
Just because it was that frenzied vibes only run by Busquets and company at the end of the year. That, like, we just somehow, like we were like in 6th place with like 8 games remaining or something like that.
That season or something crazy.
Yeah, it's just something wild. Some crazy finishes. Was it like the Nuremberg game? Was it like with the half field shot from what's his face? I forget. Yeah, I mean, just like the St. Pauli game at the end of that year with Salazar as well, like his goal, like it just I mean, that one I think was a little bit more exciting and electric, but this was just a much more dominant and I think overall deserved performance this season. Just really consistent from start to finish. Defense was too good to be denied ultimately.
Yes, it was. Joseph says we need to all go to Veltins Arena together for a game representing SchalkeMerica. Hey, let's do it, man. Dirk says more stability, better management. That's right. It was. That was a crazy time for sure. And I think that time, I'll say this year was better for me, and I say that because your points were spot on about 4 years ago. It was exciting. I mean, we had Simon Terodde, freaking the king of Zweite Liga goal scorers on our team, and he was bagging goals, 30 goals that season. And we had that great run with Busquets. We didn't know we weren't sure what was going to go on, and all of a sudden we bounced right back up, immediately bounced back up. And I think for me, it was a little bit being naive at that point because we're like, oh, we're just going to get right back. But what we've experienced in the last 3 years is that we came down and we could not get back up. We were fearing that we're going to be in Hamburg again, or be in Hamburg the way they've been there for 6-7 years. And so back then it was like, okay, we went down to Zweite Liga, but we'll come back up. Maybe 2 seasons we'll go back up. We did it right away. We had a great run. It was unbelievable. This time it came off the worst season in our history, and it was like, what the hell just happened? All of a sudden, we put the team together, and they just all season long consistently. And that wasn't necessarily flash and everything, but at the end when we started playing Elfersberg, Paderborn, Hanover, Darmstadt, all these teams, and we're getting results. It's like, okay, this team is. I feel happy again. I feel like we're a good team again. We're from the top to bottom, and so that's why I kind of being in the doldrum the last 3 years and having no faith at all. That's why I kind of like this promotion better because the 4 years ago was pretty fun. I will say that. I will say that. And you compare the two big games of these seasons, right? The 3-2 against St. Pauli and the 3-2 against Paderborn. The St. Pauli one was better because it was at home. It was at home. The crowd was electric. It was fantastic atmosphere. Nothing to think about the Paderborn game. The game set up the same way, but it's both seasons are fun. Hopefully, our first seasons in the Bundesliga is better this year than it was that last one. So we shall see. Hopefully, a better.
I think the other thing too is that like this season was more impressive because I feel like the roster was better in the other season.
Yeah, no,
I mean that's no disrespect to like Dzeko, who's probably like that was like the highest profile signing we've had basically since we got relegated all those years back. But like you had 30 goals scored plus like by Tirada that year. You had Bolter still. You had Salazar. You had Koei Takura. You had Malik Chow. You had like Oweyan and other people like that. I think we had just like more high like names that just seemed like they could affect the game.
Yes.
And anyway, I think like this was a much more impressive overall like team performance, coaching staff performance, like scouting, club management, all that kind of stuff. This was a more kind of impressive campaign.
What are your final thoughts on both the work Baumann and Muslic did this year? Because I think, obviously going into the season, we didn't know who Miron Muslić was outside of his previous resume, and so we we're thinking about managers who we're going to possibly have. Kwasniak was one of the guys at the top of our list, and he went to Cologne and got fired. And there's other names, Tits and other guys. And you hear Miron Muslić, we're like, who? And we knew Frank Baumann. Frank Baumann was the selling point because obviously what he did with Bremen. But you never know how these things are going to work out. And when they hired the manager, you're like, what's going on here? And then I think both guys have done a stellar job this year. What are your thoughts on both of those gentlemen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like the scouting is obviously taking a huge step in the right direction. We talked about El Fauzi being one of those in the summer and everything. But then what's the winter signings? Like Džeko's an obvious one. No one needs to scout Dzeko, to figure that out. But Ljubicic, who I was really excited about to begin with, Awashish, in Jaya on loan. Every single one of those guys was a huge contributor towards the end, like multiple direct goal involvements, and really just facilitated a much better play. We talked about like with Awashish, like it'd been a while since we had a player where you could just dump a ball down into that kind of like front left quadrant, like Bolter-esque, and be pretty sure that he's either going to retain it or find a way to get a ball into the box, like in the air or something like that. Really good window. So really impressed with Baumann from that perspective. And then Muslić just it's not just what he did in terms of the organization and structure of the team and everything, and the belief he instills in them and all that kind of stuff. It's also just like the personality. Some people just kind of have the aura for it, so to speak. And like you get the sense with a guy like Muslić, like even if it had started going quite poorly, that in terms of the way he was acting and his demeanor, he wouldn't have unraveled in the same way. Like even if he got fired, like I don't think he would have unraveled emotionally the same kind of way that we would see from like a Kees van Wunderen or some other people. Sometimes when the lights get a little bright and stuff starts getting a little swirly, he just doesn't seem like he just seemed like kind of the right man to be able to kind of weather the storm that can beat Schalke. And like, look, who knows how it's going to go next season? I may be laughing at these comments, based on how things go. Who knows? But like, he just really seemed to be the right personality for us at the right time, independent of some of the tactical things. And we've talked about that at length in terms of the overall and performances and whatnot. So yeah, very impressed with both of them.
Yeah, same here. I think obviously Muslić and his staff did a remarkable job on what they did to turn the team around. Obviously, Frank Baumann as well with the scouting and stuff and finding guys like El Fauzi and some of these other guys, getting guys of free transfers like Kurachai. That's another one where like apparently previous management didn't want to hire this guy because they didn't think he had any talent, and he scoops him up and he becomes our best defender of the season. And so I think both these gentlemen did really a remarkable job. as well as they did, both have a tall job going into this next season. In particular, Bauman, because he's got to create now a team, from this free transfers and loans that they had this past season. And then Music's got to put a team together, and we'll see how they do. Lot to do, but yeah, both these guys on real job. They're going to be going down in Schalke lore for a long time, no matter what the result happens. Just because this, obviously guys like Buskins goes with that. He's a Schalke through and through. But Rovan Schroeder still thought about highly for what he did in the short term there. Guys like Dominica Tedesco and stuff like that, what they did in their short time here. So yeah, it's remarkable what they did, and yeah, unreal season. Honestly. Let's before we get out of here, quick team news because not much team news has happened on so far. Dirk saying 26, 27 holding the league, 27, 28 Europa Cup spot, and 28, 29. Who knows? Champions League maybe, big league title. Who knows? We'll see. Let's stay in the league for at least this next year. That's the first goal. But team news, not much has happened thus far. It's still early in the season. Thankfully, being in the second division, we usually have like a 2-month break before the first game of the season starts in mid-July. We have another month now, so we have 3 months till the first game of the Bundesliga happens. Preseason actually starts a month from now, or 2 months from now, excuse me. But in terms of team news, there has been some team news so far. Christopher Antwi-Adjei, Paul Paparel, and Henning Matriciani definitely will not be coming back next season. I think Paulo Paparel, he's okay, youngster who we thought might do something distant kickoff with us, but I think Antwi-Adjei had some good performances. He was key in the first half of the season, got injured himself, and he kind of got dropped in the pecking order once all the reinforcements came in. And obviously, Gotriciani, he's forever be a Schalke goat for us, right? And then the games alone when he played against Dortmund, in the past, how he blocked shots and this and that, going above and beyond, representing the coal miner mentality. He'll be missed dearly. But all three, I think, hope they all do well in their next ventures, but they're not going to be back next year.
You see the goat hoodie that he's wearing?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never noticed that.
I forgot how I can get me one of those. I need to go Triciani hoodie for sure. Schalke needs to
yeah.
sell those in the clubhouse if they're not already doing that. But yeah, I mean, Antwi-Adjei, certainly a contributor, mostly early in the season for us this year, but had some really nice moments. I remember a goal he scored off of like some pressure, like in the first half early on, like an open net, like when Muslic was taking advantage of like putting teams under a lot of pressure early in matches when we were scoring earlier in the first half of the season. Yeah. Adjei played a big role. Then Triciani, just Schalke fan favorite, absolute totem of greatness. So yeah, love him. Wish him the best.
Other bit news, like I said, first preseason game. It seems like it's going to be July 19th against Eisenberg Auch. So that's a friendly there. Another game was scheduled as well for August 1st. This one is against Hessen Kassel. Early two friendlies coming in. Like I said, first Bundesliga typically starts around the third week of August. It has at least the last couple of years. In terms of sponsorship news, extension with top partner Bilstein Group extended to 2028, so with a little bit more money from that deal there. Obviously, with players possibly going here and there, this and that. Always curious about who may come in. We talked about Bill Bia would be a guy who would have been nice to have, but since he's getting promoted, that's undoubted. We're not going to get him. You can look at teams like Heidenheim and Wolfsburg, certainly. I didn't even know Christian Eriksen played for Wolfsburg. But if you looked at just the teams we played last year and look at Düsseldorf, a couple players are on the list. Cedric Itten, a big striker who can score goals, as well as Tanaka as well from Düsseldorf. At least for Tanaka, he's got a $1 million euro clause. I think they're probably looking at him more closer than they are Itten. But, there's a couple names there. There's other people you can mention. I mean, I'm sure there's of the teams that got relegated. You can look at some of those players. The goalkeeper for Heidenheim, Ramai, who's pretty good. And there's other players. I know they're looking, and obviously Bauman's got an extensive scouting network, and so they're already looking at players in France and some other leagues as well, Belgium as well, I think I saw. So nothing concrete yet, it's just a bunch of random names. Have you heard anything yourself in terms of the rumor mill?
I have not. Like we talked about Bill B already. I don't know if like Lidberg is another person to be considering potentially, just in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of like who's kind of near the top of the table. If we're trying to grab somebody up, but yeah, we have to keep an eye on the news this summer.
Well, apparently that team we play in August 1st, Hessen Kessel, is Derek Ray's team. So maybe we try to get him on the podcast for that. Yeah, there. Let's see what else there is. And this is from Bill, so take it with a grain of salt. But apparently the players are probably gone this summer, more than likely. Porat, Donkor, Kalash, Hamash, Salazar, Nude, and Wazinski. And then ones that have not been made decisions yet are Gomes, Lasma, Hoyland, Sanchez, Bachmann, and Gantenbaum, as well as Gruger, Valentevit, Sieb King, and Podlik, all to be loaned out. So, oh, hopefully Gruger gets some time there. Obviously, with El Fauzi and Schallenberg in the mix, it's going to be hard to replace those two, but getting some minutes would be ideal for him and all the youngsters, honestly. Something I didn't know. Uh, I know Miron Muslić wasn't a member, but he is now. And Norbert Elgert, he's also he's now officially a member. So they both signed their memberships at this meeting, and this meeting essentially was a to talk about the cooperative of for Schalke and their what they're trying to do with this. And so they had this big, video about it. You should go watch it on the page. But basically, it says the cooperative is investing in the purchase of stadium shares, and we had talked about this last year. The funds flowing into the club as a result are intended to have an impact where the future is built in the professional team, so that promotion is followed by stability, and Schalke can once again establish itself permanently in the Bundesliga and in the youth academy, so that the young talents at Schalke once again have the prospects that have distinguished the club for decades. And it goes on and on about that. But essentially, it's a way for Schalke to stabilize the team by giving out some of their shares and bringing in money elsewhere where they normally didn't have. I know they're working on some more new sponsorships, but interesting. It's an interesting take. We'll see how it works. It's worked at some clubs. It didn't work at other clubs. So I don't know how it will go with us. I know the initial kickoff when it happened months ago, they were hoping for a lot of shares to be bought, and they didn't have quite the numbers that I forget who it was. Was it Union Berlin or somebody else like that had a huge turnout? So we'll see how it goes, Jack. I don't know how hopeful you are about something like this, but I'll just wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, I'll have to do some more reading on this to get a better opinion on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting stuff.
Um. Yeah. Other than that, Bundesliga set next year. Obviously, Bayern are the holders this year. But teams we're looking at next year: Bayern Munich, Dortmund.
122 goals. Like, what are we doing in the Bundesliga? Can we not let them do this, please? Like,
Yeah,
stop it.
I know. Dortmund, Leipzig, Stuttgart, Hoffenheim, Bayer Leverkusen, and Freiburg. Freiburg were in the finals. They lost big in the finals of the Europa League. Eintracht Frankfurt, Augsburg. Augsburg, who started the season horribly, they went on a run at the end of the season. Mainz, Union Berlin also went on a big run. Gladbach, Hamburg, and Cologne and Werder Bremen all will be joined by, obviously, us, Paderborn, and Elfersberg next season. What are your realistic expectations right now? We don't know anything about the team going into next year, but if you're looking at the next year, obviously we want to stay in the league. But looking at the names on this list, these big names, how are you feeling going into next season?
15th.
15th would be that would do the trick. That would do the trick. It really would. I think, yeah, if 15th, I think obviously the two teams that come up with us are teams that we should be able to compete with, right? Werder struggled this past year. Who knows what kind of reinforcement they get? But Cologne and Hamburg are teams you have to watch out. Union Berlin has been struggling the last couple of years, as have Mainz and Augsburg. So, I think those are the teams you're going to have to really focus in on. And if you can get positive results against them, as we did the top five this year, I think good things will come. But I think those are the things we don't want to shoot for the moon and say we're going to win the league or anything like that, or get back to Champions League. Slower roll. Let's stay in the league. I think that's the goal at 15th. If we get 15th, great. Who did that? Who was it? It was might have been the last time we were in the Bundesliga, and I think we're talking about Stuttgart Americana, and they said like their goal when they came in was 15th, get 15th place or 13th, something like that. I think that's got to be our goal. Just get in the place that's in the league for next year, and just move up from there. Like Stuttgart, obviously, are doing really well now. They're in Champions League now themselves, so.
I'm sure Muslić will have something more inspiring to say than me just going 15th. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, that's all we need is just to try to reestablish some sort of foothold in the top flight. Kind of a base of operations, if you will, from which we can slowly try to get back to where we want to be. But we have to be there. We can't go right back down again. Really want to avoid that.
Yeah, financially, it's not going to be good for us if we do that. So, anyway, all right, that's it. Long season is over. Champions promoted, back to the promised land. Well, the Bundesliga. Promised land is getting back to the Champions League and getting the money back, right? But nonetheless, it was quite a season, Jack. It was nice to have a fun season, and hell, it was a hell of a year for you as well. So,
absolutely,
what a year! What a year! So.
Shout out to our fans here watching along with us and contributing over the course of the season. It helps us from shouting into the void. Me more than Richard, of course, with my background. We'd be here regardless, but it's a lot more fun to interact with all of you. And then, of course, Richard, shout out to you as well, sir, for all the things that you do to make this possible with your technical setup and everything and all the prep that you put into the pods. Richard has the hard job. I have the much easier job of just kind of showing up and spewing my nonsense. So great to have another season in the books with you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Oh, cheers to that, Jack. Yeah, we'll see how next season goes. My background will change because I am relocating, so my office is gonna be changed again for the third year in a row, or whatever. But it's gonna be we're gonna try to do more things with the Discord and group and stuff like that, and do some things. And hey, maybe we can get a meeting to go to the Veltins Arena for a game one time. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be more watch parties back now that we're back in the Bundesliga. Maybe there are more watch parties will be involved. I'll be trying to get involved with the Cincinnati watch parties for sure. Just a week in and week out basis, but in terms of the SchalkeMerica, actually, big watch parties like we used to have back before COVID, maybe we can get back to those. We'll see how that all goes. But you know what? It's summertime. We're SchalkeMerica International field trip. There you go. Enjoy the next 2-3 months. It's been fun. Enjoy it. Remember what we had. All right, Jack. Where can our followers find you? Maybe not this summer, but in social media.
Not at all, really, in terms of my activity level on that site, but at JMMangan, JMMangan on X/Twitter.
You can follow me at R_KHARMAN. More importantly, follow us at SchalkeMerica all across social media. Go on our YouTube page. If you forgot the goals, go watch the highlights. And yeah, we'll be in and out on social media this summer. We're mostly quiet, but hey, big moves happen. If Dzeko or some other big name comes this summer, we may be back for a quick podcast. Who knows? But enjoy the break. Enjoy the summer. Jack, take it easy, my man. And we'll catch you guys in a few months. A couple months. Not a few months. A couple months. All right. For Jack, myself, enjoy the summer. Enjoy the celebration and the festivities. Look out.